All right, so today is Friday, May 1st, and here's what I got done this week. Last week in my video, I mentioned that I, got all the seatbelts and everything in. I forgot to mention that I did put the, this plastic edge protector around the ribs where the seatbelt passes through, especially on the top one. It contacts because it's kind of, gets pulled outward here, and so it does contact the outside edge of that rib. So you want to make sure that it's sliding against something soft and not something, not the metal edge. But I put it on the other ones as well. Another thing I forgot to mention is, in order for me to seal all this ducting, and I did just use silicone. It has no problem. It sticks just fine, and it's a lot easier to work with than that Sikaflex stuff. So because the ducting is, it's not flight critical or anything. It's not like the seal between the cabin here where you don't want water from outside to get in. So anyway, I sealed all that up with silicone, and I did, before I sealed it, drill 2 holes through here, the top of this square duct piece, and it holds it much better in place, because otherwise it's just kind of wedged in there and you're hoping that the sealant is like a glue. But to me, it just made more sense to put a couple of rivets through there. It's not gonna hurt the airflow or anything through there to have that little rivet inside. And so yeah, so that's what I did there. But anyway, on to this week. I think I'm about, I might be just about done with the firewall forward stuff right now. I got all the fuel lines are done. A couple of things that, I found out the hard way are the firewall forward manual doesn't really do a very good job of describing kind of how the system works. So you do need to use the fuel system manual or fuel system diagram, whatever it is, as well as the firewall forward, and kind of like cross-reference the two of them. One major thing is that the firewall forward diagram doesn't tell you that everything past the the pumps uses a different fuel line, and it does include both in the kit. It uses this fuel injector, there it is, fuel injection hose, R9 or whatever is the spec on this one, and everything on the return side uses R7. It's doesn't have as high of pressure, and so that you find in the fuel system diagram. Something I did was I swapped out, because in the manual it says both of these need to be this 90-degree fitting like this. I swapped out the bottom one with a straight fitting, and it fits much nicer. I actually saw some pictures of that Revente, that orange TSi that got finished in Torrance. They did this at their build assist, and it does come out just much cleaner, because these kind of want to hit each other and they kind of cause some interference, and these have a little bit of flex inside, you can see, but yeah, this comes out a lot better. And then you just kind of, just get it done from there. And this sleeving stuff, sometimes for the longer runs, doesn't go on very easily. So what I do is I think I saw this on a video from I don't know, one of the build assist programs. But anyway, you take your air hose and you slide it in. I'm trying to do this one-handed. You slide it in here, and when you pull the air hose trigger, it kind of just slightly inflates this guy, and so then you're able to slide it on really easily if the air hose is going. So that was a pretty simple fix that helped out a lot. Another thing is, I found that the fuel lines slide onto the pieces, the barbed pieces, much easier if you just put a little bit of soapy water on there. And of course, so trying to be as careful as possible with the fuel system, I tried as hard as I could to slide the insulation on and the soapy water part before I really installed it to anything permanently, and then I blew it out with the air gun as much as possible to both, get the soapy water out of there. Well, the water's going to get out anyway, but and the kind of fiberglass little fuzz pieces that get inside the fuel lines, I didn't want to have to risk that. So yeah, a couple things that aren't mentioned in the manual are the coolant overflow bottle. I still need to put the clamp, but that actually runs the line. It's hard to see, but it runs underneath through here to this nipple here. And so I haven't permanently installed it yet. But yeah, that's how that one goes. I left everything off of this side of the engine because when everything's on, it's it's really hard to access anything else. And I still know that I've got the starter solenoid to wire up to the battery, and well, whatever, you can trust me, the starter's back in there. And so I think that this side's the easier side to access the stuff from. Plus there's a lot less fuel lines on this side. They're all made up and ready to go, but they're just not installed. I got the coolant lines are all same thing. They're all done, cut, ready to go, but I left them off this side and installed them onto this side. So one thing to take note of here is that fitting back in there, that silver one, is not the stock fitting. The one that comes on the engine is like a 90-degree bend one. And so it was definitely not that hard to get to, but you know, a little bit of foresight and just to swap that out before you put the engine on is really easy and would save a little bit of a headache. Another thing is when I think this is like the turbo like blowout pressure valve or something. In this hose, this is how it comes from the factory out of the box on this engine. This hose interferes a little bit. It kind of like pushes like that against the intercooler that mounts up right here. And so I asked the factory if you, and I'm pretty sure I'm probably just going to do it anyway, or at least take a look at it, popping these 4 bolts out and just rotating at 90 degrees so this hose comes out the back. I'm pretty sure that's okay. But I think that the factory is having their own coronavirus stuff going on right now, so no response on that yet. So yeah, I really like the way that the straight fitting came off of here. Everything flows really nicely. This T right here is it has a little small diameter jet valve on it because this, actually, I don't really know why, but this is what connects to the outlet. So it's some sort of like pressure balance thing so that, I don't know, I'll look into that. But anyway, a couple of weird things that I noticed are the standard location for the fuse box here requires that this cable runs to it, but then these 2 little wires here, they need to plug into the fuel pump, and you can see one of them reaches, but the other one needs to go all the way over here. So it definitely doesn't reach, so I'm not sure what airplane factory does with that. I definitely am not going to just cut that before I hear back though. Cut it and splice in some longer wires. But anyway, let's see here. So I had a thought, and I noticed that my seat rails here were like slightly pushing in on these I don't know what you call them, ribs that hold the bushing there. And so I thought I should double check it. So I pulled off my flap actuator and just tried to rotate this guy, and sure enough, it was really hard to rotate. And it wasn't like that, you know, it was all nice and smooth and not bound up. But the problem was that the seat rails, they have this rivet here, and either it pushes down on this little tab here, or it pushes inwards, and mine was pushing inwards on the tab, and it was causing those bushings to bind up. So I removed my seat rails and I just kind of cut out the little notch where the where the seat rails were interfering. And now there should be no binding issue. So yeah, like now it's nice and smooth, no resistance at all. Something else that I did is I was told by the factory to just use dry lube on all these, like the spray kind of Teflon dry lube stuff, but I put grease, and I don't want to move that too much, it's hitting all that stuff, but I put some grease, and when I did that, it man, it's so smooth now. It's just like, it's like nothing to actuate it. So, you know, for what that's worth, I'm having a lot of good luck with grease. So everything on my control rods is perfect now. I really am happy with it. I decided to leave off the flap actuator and the seat rails because they're really quick and easy to install, and it gives me a lot of space for all this other stuff that I've been doing. So I ran the fuel lines from, so everything should be here ready to go to install the fuel selector valve. I've got the fuel filters here that come from the tanks, and yeah, then they go to the selector valve there, and got the throttle cable is all installed. One thing about the throttle cable though is that the little cable, the actual cable that goes inside the sheathing, is like about a foot shorter than the sheath. So I've got to go find or order or whatever a longer cable. Shouldn't be hard to find, it's just a throttle cable. Okay, and so I think the last thing that I did this week was I got the brake lines going. There's no instruction at all on these, and I had asked Airplane Factory technical support for, you know, a diagram of how to do it, and I think that they're closed, like I said before. So I just kind of took my time and figured it out. It's not too bad. There's a plastic tube that they put inside here before they glass it over, and so it's, you know, unobstructed. Everything's really fine. One thing that I had to do was I had to kind of, the hole was, I don't know, maybe a quarter, maybe a half an inch away from the wall here, and so there was just no way to get the tube to come out and over without kinking. And you definitely cannot drill a hole right here because, oh, well, you can't see it. That's a that's a rear spar carry through, and obviously a whole bunch of structural support is there for the gear legs and stuff. So I got the choice. I had the choice. I've seen some people put the hole here and some people put the hole here. I chose here because it seemed like it was gonna kink less right here. So that being said, speaking of kinking, these lines are like a stiff, rigid plastic. They kind of suck to work with, and because I was winging it on my first one, so I've only got one side done because of this. As I was feeding this one through, I kind of kinked it a little bit, and it's not that bad. Could have been worse, but it's your brake lines, so I don't want one of them to have a better flow than the other one or anything like that. And that's when I realized that they provide this thicker clear tubing, and that's to prevent it from kinking where it turns. So you can see I've got it over here, and it's not able to kink when you do this, and it also works as like an edge guard and stuff. So then it runs into here, and because I don't have that other one done yet, I haven't finished this, but I've got my T-piece, and it runs up to where the brake lever is, somewhere like right here. So then I've got that, and so yeah, I don't have enough because I kinked that piece, and actually there wouldn't have been enough either way. But then this is your brake reservoir, and it runs through this, where is it? Yeah, through that rubber grommet there, and then up to the brake as well. So that's how the brake system works, and I'll have to find some of this plastic tubing. It's 1/4 inch OD, so being in America, that should be not too hard to source. Good thing it's not anything metric. So yeah, anyway, I think that's everything I got done this week. So it feels pretty good. Got a lot of progress done. Looks like, oh, another thing I did was I cut out some discs out of some scrap acrylic plastic that I had with a hole saw and used them as kind of an extra standoff, because there was a service bulletin that came out for the ECU to make sure it's not shorted. If any part of the metal touches here, it shorts out, and it wasn't touching, but I figured why not? Well, it's super easy to get to. I'll just make some little standoffs. And the wire here was getting a little bit tight anyway, because it's got kind of a long run to get it to there. And so that just gave it just that little bit extra relief. So I liked that. But anyway, all right. Have a good weekend.